Today we travel back to this day in 1976 when it was politics, politics, politics. Sounds familiar, as the nation had a case of primary fever. Here's how it went.
This is ABC News. Now from ABC Primary Election Headquarters in Los Angeles, here is Harry Reisner.
Good evening. There are more primary races being held today than on any Tuesday this year, 6 in all. There are 3 in the South, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and there are 3 here in the West, Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. For the Republicans, there are 176 delegates at stake. For the Democrats, there are 179. In the Democratic race, Jimmy Carter is expected to win with ease in the South, but in the West, he's being sharply challenged by Governor Jerry Brown of California and Senator Frank Church of Idaho. Senator Church left Oregon to vote today in his home state, in Boise. He is expected to win Idaho with ease. Tonight he'll go back to Oregon, where a newspaper poll today shows him with a commanding lead. If Senator Church does win in both Idaho and Oregon, he will be 3 for 3 in the races he has entered. Governor Jerry Brown's in California today, but he spent a hard night campaigning in Portland before going home. He didn't discuss the issues very much, but instead kept hammering home his message of the new politics. Brown is expected to win in Nevada, and a newspaper poll today shows him second to Church in Oregon. Brown's problem in Oregon is that his name is not on the ballot. Supporters were out in force there today explaining to voters as they arrived at the polls how they could write in Brown's name.
How to do a write-in?
What do you say, man?
Jimmy Carter left Oregon yesterday afternoon after a busy day of campaigning. He has spent a lot of time there because if he loses Oregon, as well as Nevada and Idaho, his momentum as the front runner could well be hurt. President Ford's best chance for a win against Ronald Reagan tonight is in Oregon. ABC's Herbert Kaplow is in Portland and has a look at the race there.
Oregon, determined to preserve its blessings of nature, politically a mixture of liberalism and conservatism. Idaho, its medium-sized cities reinforcing the conservatism of the frontier. Nevada, its gambling masking the frontier conservatism there that dominates the state's republicanism. The 3 western states join today in a political experiment.
It is, in a sense, the nation's first regional primary. As you can see, we in Oregon have 30 delegates. Idaho will have 21 and Nevada 18.
The voting began early. President Ford was expected to win in Oregon, Reagan in Idaho and Nevada. Altogether, 69 delegates to fight for, only about 3% of all those who will choose a presidential nominee at the Republican convention in August, but perhaps a crucial 3%.
Going into the final down-to-the-wire battle for delegates, these states could be well the states that have the impact of making the margin of difference for us to win on the first ballot.
Ford strategists particularly suspect today's primaries may affect future ones, perhaps the biggest of all, California.
Here we are in 1976, and we have a primary on both sides of California, i.e. Nevada and Oregon. And I think it's going to be sort of a double whammy psychological effect on California.
And so the tacticians are already looking ahead to the big last primaries 2 weeks from now, California, along with Ohio and New Jersey. But they're already looking beyond even them to the 200 or so delegates who will still be uncommitted and whom both sides suspect will ultimately tip the Republican nomination one way or the other. Herbert Kaplow, ABC News in Portland, Oregon.
A preliminary Lewis Harris ABC News poll conducted at selected representative polling places in Oregon shows, based on an incomplete sampling, that Senator Church is likely to do very well in that state, and also that Governor Brown's write-in campaign is working well. So well, in fact, that he is likely to give Jimmy Carter a good run for second place. That's not very good news for Carter, who had hoped to win in Oregon. Ronald Reagan is favored to win all 3 of today's primaries in the South. He appears to have a comfortable lead in Arkansas, but it's closer in Kentucky. Mr. Ford might be able to win there, but the president's best chance for a win in the South is Tennessee. We have more on the Tennessee race from ABC's Bill Wardham.
Large crowds gave the president an enthusiastic welcome when he came here, but that was his only visit, and it was 11 days ago. And since then, enthusiasm for Ford has diminished. He had promised to come back for a major fundraising event, but the urgent need to campaign in Michigan kept him away from Tennessee. And when he did not come back, he annoyed party officials, and local supporters became dispirited. Ronald Reagan was here last week, in tune with conservatives in this southern state and ready to capitalize on Ford's tactical error. But instead, he gave away his advantage with a careless comment. He criticized the publicly owned Tennessee Valley Authority. Reagan's supporters were horrified. The TVA provides relatively low-cost power to and employment for thousands of Tennesseans. And similar criticism derailed Barry Goldwater's campaign here in 1964. Reagan later tried to soften the blow, but the damage had been done. It probably doesn't matter, because the Republican issue here will be decided by Democratic crossover votes. Many Wallace supporters want to vote for a winner, and by that they mean Reagan.
Here in Jackson, for instance, in West Tennessee, solid Wallace country, about 1 voter in 3 has indicated that he is going to vote Republican. Normally, only 1 in 10 votes Republican.
I'm going to vote for Ronald Reagan.
Were you a former Wallace supporter? I understand this was a big Wallace area.
This was a big Wallace area, and I have been for Wallace.
The total Republican vote in this state is so small that if only 1 out of every 10 of those Wallace supporters defects to Reagan, it should be enough to give Reagan a victory in an otherwise very close race. Bill Werdum, ABC News, Nashville, Tennessee.
ABC today proposed the presidential candidates meet each other in broadcast debates on the issues. Eldon Rule, president of American Broadcasting Companies Incorporated, said in Los Angeles that if the candidates make themselves available after the conventions for debate or other serious consideration of the issues, ABC stands committed to bringing those events to the American public. Rule called on the Republican and Democratic national committees and the candidates to commit themselves now to this use of television and radio to inform the voters.
Looking back over the now 3/4 finished primary season, you can see 2 distinct phases. First, the image phase, when you try not so much to get delegates as to acquire the image of a winner. Then image wears thin with familiarity, and now it's the phase of arithmetic. It matters less that you win or lose than that you accumulate delegates for nomination. Jimmy Carter either divined or fell into that scenario almost perfectly. In the image phase, he not only won primaries, but he got delegates and pledges of future ones. His image now manifestly plays less of a part. He's very familiar. But the arithmetic proceeds relentlessly. Last week, his worst week, he won 100 new delegates. And win or lose in Oregon, strictly an image state, he will gain even more. And so with primaries to come. While others build their images rather late, Carter, with a fading image, is almost sure to reach the day of judgment with so much arithmetic that failure to nominate him might split his party. The common complaint about Carter is we don't know much about him. Well, we do know he's a master electoral strategist. If things continue to fall out his way in all that matters, one hopes that electoral strategy can carry over into the ability to run the most complex government on earth, which is an altogether different art. The polls in Kentucky began closing less than a half an hour ago, and on the basis of our key precincts, ABC News projects that Jimmy Carter will win the Kentucky Democratic primary by a wide margin. The Republican race in Kentucky is considered still too close to call. Harry?
A final note, a man I know said he had been thinking over the primary system, which has reached some kind of a peak or valley this year. I said I supposed he disapproved of having so many. Not at all, he said there ought to be more. I expressed surprise. Certainly, he said, this has been the greatest force for economic and moral recovery of the decade. The government has pumped millions of dollars into the economy and grants to candidates, he noted. The news organizations, millions more. Hundreds of reporters and charter pilots and advance men and licensed limousine drivers have been put back to work. Dozens at first, and even now a half-dozen politicians have been kept honestly employed. What about the moral recovery, I asked. Very simple, he said. Several hundred of the best reporters in the country have been following the candidates around. This keeps them from other investigations, so if anything bad is going on, maybe we at least don't know about it, which is nice for a change. I said that wasn't very responsible. He said it also kept the reporters out of trouble, and I conceded that was progress. No question about it, he said, this is just the beginning. In the next election, we'll have all the primaries a year ahead of time. Then what, I asked, will we do for the pre-convention months? Secondaries, he said. That's the news. I'm Harry Reasoner in Los Angeles. Good night.